Did I freeze or did you guys freeze?
You did.
You did.
Okay. What? Could you guys hear me or no?
Nope.
I mean, bits.
Yeah, you were
Okay.
saying things.
Yeah,
Oh,
we could
okay.
hear
Where
that you
did,
were saying things, but it was that app. Yeah.
Oh shoot. Okay. Well, good. Because you guys froze on my screen. I was thinking like, no, everything just froze on John's end.
I know. That's what I was. That's why I was like internally
Yeah.
panicking. But I think I'm still recording. I've got nothing wrong on my end.
Yeah.
As long as you're still recording.
Your internet blipped, Kevin. That's all it was.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with Randall Nolery
Hello.
and John Hines.
Hey there.
And we are back, as always, to talk about some video games. And yeah, that's what we do. So why don't I pass it over to you, Randall? Because as always, I never know what to say when we start these episodes off. So yeah, why don't you get us started with what you've been playing lately?
I've been playing some video games, so I'd like to discuss them on our weekly podcast. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about, we're finally seeing a little bit of the end of the tunnel potentially here on this pandemic thing.
Yes.
And that's given me a little bit of a breather and an opportunity to return to some uncompleted games that I've played quite a bit of in the past, but maybe didn't make time for during the pandemic because, I was too busy shying away playing, Animal Crossing or something else that just made me feel happy. And, those type of things are, focusing on work too. But, yeah. So I finally have been taking a breather, taking a step back, looking at the game library, figuring out what I want to pick the pieces up of again and start playing. And Breath of the Wild, of course, picks its nose out again because that game's phenomenal. My favorite Zelda game. And I left it purposely with a lot still left to do, not just the DLC, but a lot of the other side quest stuff during Breath of the Wild. So we took a needed vacation about a month ago, I would say at this point, to like a remote cabin out by the ocean here in Washington State. And I brought the Switch with me, of course, in Breath of the Wild because, of course, and... Glad I did, because I finally took on Eventide Island.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
So, for whatever reason, I actually did try to go there back when I was like, 2017 or whatever. It was also the 4-year anniversary of Breath of the Wild and the Switch releasing.
Which is crazy. It's crazy that that's 4 years old already.
I know. So I'm like, that kind of times out well, too. But yeah, I tried before to go there, but I didn't have quite enough, hearts or stamina where like it was a miracle that I even made it there in the first place type of thing. And I probably shouldn't have been there. But in a post-game sense, I had like, of course, a ton of hearts and the full stamina, like double, triple circle, basically. So the whole conceit of Eventide Island, if you haven't done it, and I highly recommend you do, it's in the bottom right corner of the map, and it's pretty far away from the rest of the mainland, but it strips away everything from you, essentially. All your supplies, all your weapons, all your equipment is gone, essentially.
Close everything, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which
Your
is
boxers.
awesome. Yeah. It basically invokes the beginning of the game. Which is such a cool way to go about that. I love that a lot. I cherish that because I don't think there's anything quite like in video games the beginning of Breath of the Wild, where it's like it's so open-ended. You're starting with essentially nothing, and you just got to make do with your own resourcefulness. But yeah, it takes everything away from you, and it's one big puzzle on this island, essentially, where you have to take these, giant orbs, essentially, and place them in the corners of the island, which is easier said than done because, for instance, one of them is separated by water, and you have to figure out, using your abilities or, whatever clever approach you have to get this orb to the water. Of course, you can't carry it while you're swimming. So you have to figure out, like, how am I gonna do this? What I did and what I think most people do is kind of throw it into the water. It kind of drifts towards this, shrine circle essentially where the orb needs to go, and then I use the cryonis ability to freeze an ice block that kind of shoots it upwards, and you hope that that orb kind of stays where it's supposed to go on that little.
Hope it doesn't slide off.
Yeah, instead of sliding back off into the water, which definitely happened a couple of times to me. But yeah, it was just fun to like have that like start over from scratch experience, but not quite. I'm still empowered with the hearts and the stamina. I'm assuming both of you guys have got there based on your reaction.
Oh, yeah. I have, yeah. I got there kind of early on, kind of your experience, like early on enough where I also, like, I think I took 4 or 5 stabs at it.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, like, I'll come back here later when I want to keep making some more progress in the game. And this, I still haven't beaten Breath of the Wild, so this is one that I need to go back to as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was a really cool, like, I was determined to do it, but I was like, I think I should save this for later.
Yeah, and I'm also when you were describing that it like feels like you're playing like the beginning of the game, and like Randall, have you beaten Breath of the Wild ever? Or?
Yes. So okay. I beat the like base game ending essentially, but not the DLC ending.
Gotcha. But like I've gone and played Breath of the Wild maybe 6 or 7 times through.
No,
you're a sick man.
And but I do absolutely agree that like it does just like that is a feeling of like wonder at the beginning of the game, and that is like this little self-contained island, and it feels so good. And
it does.
Like I also kind of somewhat recently also revisited, like started one of my many replays of Breath of the Wild right before Hyrule Warriors came out. Right. And I also did like Eventide Island again, like, and man, it's just such a great self-contained puzzle.
It is.
Which gives you so many of like the mechanics that are, you know, taught to you throughout the game, and such a great game.
It's great. Yeah, and on the island you're like foraging for fruits or whatever you can find, the mushrooms, and you're like, okay, I kind of remember what one of the recipes was. Oh, like there's a, you know, banana, and there's this type of mushroom that'll give me like defense up because there's this massive goblin that you can or can't fight. It's up to you, which of course you have to fight it. He's sleeping right there.
Oh yeah.
Why wouldn't you fight him?
Of course.
He's got the orb around his neck.
That's true. You have to fight him, don't you?
For a quick second, I was like, wait, is there no fighting on? I was like, am I thinking of a different island? But I was like, I'm pretty sure you got to take out that huge
Hinox.
Whatever. Yeah.
Hinox. There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Snorlax.
Oh, I know every single.
Well, you better by now 6 times.
That's awesome, though. No, so that was just like, wow, what a great experience to go back and do at this point and just like relive a different version of that beginning of the game. And then, of course, then I had to play more afterwards. But it's another excuse to keep coming back. And at some point, I will take out that DLC ending, too, because I've heard that's also
it's so good. It's and it gives you it does like a similar reset-ish thing.
Ooh.
Or like gives you very specific parameters that you have to work with.
Ooh.
And it's I really want you to go through it.
I think you've probably propelled me forward enough just saying that. I think that's great. So the other game that I also have been kind of going back to that wasn't quite complete, that I definitely couldn't face up to during the pandemic and all of that, the feelings that brought, was The Last of Us 2. That's a gloomy game, and it still quite a gloomy game still. But again, light at the end of the tunnel kind of changes your perspective on some of these things a little bit.
Yeah,
but I won't talk too much about that one because I haven't beaten it yet. But I'm definitely going to be seeing that through. I've covered another probably third of that game, so I'm in like the last third, I would say, pretty close to completion, and still feel the same that I did before, where not sure it quite has the same story pull as the first game, but the gameplay is still just as good as the first one was, and that propelled me a lot of the way in the first game as well. So I still really enjoy the core gameplay loop of unlocking the skill trees, finding these secret areas and supplies, and rinse and repeat, sneak arounds, little story section, little fighting section, yada, yada. So I will see that through, but yeah, not something that was that I was willing to take on until basically just now.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, I can't even imagine sinking my teeth into something like that.
Goes into some
in the
dark
last
places.
year, basically.
Yeah, yeah. More to come there.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I guess as far as what I've been playing this week, I've been doing my usual thing where I dip my toes in on Itch.io and just kind of poke around. And John had mentioned a game that he and I wanted to sync up on. So before I got to that, I was just kind of poking around. And I think when you and I were talking about Self on the podcast last week from Dev Dwarf and Matt Ugg, I've been hanging out a little more in that Discord, and there's just a bunch of game developers hanging out in there and mentioning, hey, I'm working on this game, or hey, I'm working on this game. And our buddy Lewmoth, who we actually interviewed on the podcast, had just worked on a new game called Hinoken for the Wowie Jam. With a couple of other folks, Frogrammer and HumanIsRed, were the other two game designers and developers.
Frogrammer,
and it's like this really cool. Yeah, I love the not only their name but even their page. They have a really nice splash logo on the top. It's really really well done. I definitely want to check out some more of their games.
Nice.
But yeah, it's a really cool samurai single screen arcade platformer. It's this one. The structure of the game, and I'm sure this was the theme of the jam, but there's I think 5 rows of levels, and there's the first row has 5 levels, second row has 4 levels, third row has 3 levels, all the way down to where the final row just has 1 level. And then if you make it all the way, all you have to do is beat 1 level in a row to then move down to the next row. But if you lose, for example, once you get to the 4th row, there's only 2 levels. If you lose both those levels, you go all the way back to the beginning. So you do have to that's the structure of this game, and they have the timings timed down. It is a precision platformer at heart. You have to, you kind of have to learn the levels. It was a really interesting structure to the game, because you're almost having to die to learn the levels, because you got to get to the swords so fast, and it had a little bit of a puzzle element to it where you had to kind of go a specific path. I can't take the high road to get to the sword, because there's no way I'm going to be able to wall jump back up to the top. There's no way I'm going to be able to, because the goal of the game is once you get the sword, I didn't even mention the concept, but you get the sword, and then once you pick up the sword, a replica of yourself starts replaying, and then you have to take the sword and kill yourself before your previous self before the time runs out.
Wow.
So, and it's a pretty generous the sword you pick up kind of just floats around you, so you just have to be pretty close to your previous samurai and just hit the attack button. So it's not you have to be right there, but with that tight timer, I mean, you just, I don't know, it's just a really cool, and it's just super stylish game. That's why it caught my eye. Lewmoth or somebody had posted hey, there's this new game we worked on, and I was oh man, that looks sweet. Let me check that out. And then I was super pumped that, again, just to throw out this Discord again, the HumanIsRed developer had posted a fan art for this game that they had checked out called Rusty Wind Blows.
Yeah.
And that's from a developer called or named Kultisti. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But I just it was a really striking fan art that I was man, that looks really cool. It's just black and turquoise, and that was all it was. And just the art itself was really cool. But I was oh, what's this all about? And so I ended up checking out the game, and it's this clicker game shooter hybrid, and I actually ended up beating it on my first try. I don't know if that's what's intended, but it is meant to be on your you can go for high scores or speed, almost speed running. But it's essentially you have these 3 buttons at the bottom of the screen, and it's all mouse controls. And again, it has this really striking. The game itself has this really striking 1-bit black and turquoise art style. Really simplistic, kind of downwell, and kind of the opposite of downwell where you're going upward. And you basically have to click on this engine or this generator that you can charge up to a charge of a 400. It just has a meter. You can either hold it down, or if you rapidly click, it goes up by 10 at a time.
Okay.
And then you have your engine that you have to charge, and that will just slowly drain. And as the engine is charged and draining, you'll be rising. The water level will keep rising, and you're kind of coming out of this cavern or well or whatever you're coming out of. And then your only way to move side to side is by shooting, and you have to charge your musket as well by using energy. And like, so your musket, you'll click and aim. Like, again, it's all mouse controls. So you hold down, and it's almost like a laser beam. It really doesn't feel like a musket at all, like this huge laser beam. And then when you fire it, whatever direction you fire it in, you have to kill the enemies they're all like kind of bats that kind of fly above you. There's no like water aquatic enemies. It's pretty limited enemy. I think this was also done for a game jam.
Yeah.
But then whatever direction you fire in, your boat will then start moving in the opposite direction.
Sure.
So that's how you're like propelling your ship in this. So that's how you have to dodge attacks. So you're really just having to manage, like, you know, it starts once you start getting closer to the top, it does get pretty frantic where you're like, okay, I'm running out of energy, and like the lights start going out. So your musket and where you're aiming it also acts as a flashlight, but like you have to be holding it down while you're using it as a flashlight. So like you're not able to click and charge your stuff up. So it just gets really kind of hectic and frantic. And again, like I think I just got really lucky because there were a couple points in my first playthrough where it was like pitch black and I was just like charging and clicking as fast as I could, like, please nothing hit me, please nothing hit me. And like I just got lucky, but it just got such a striking art style and it's something that I honestly, like, I was like, I'll definitely come back and fire this up again. Like, it's just so cool. And it even has like a little bit of story, and it was like, I don't know, it was a little bit touching, I thought, actually, the way it was put together. So, and then I ended up actually finding another game from them that I think they also, I don't know if it was from the Wowie Jam, but it was also from a recent game jam, Roborazzi, kind of like paparazzi, but Roborazzi. And it's very similar to a game that we've talked about on the podcast, I think a couple times now, Singled Out, which has those Guess Who mechanics of like where you're looking for like basically this game, you're like, you pick, it's kind of like a top-down perspective, and you're exploring these rooms, and there'll be like a set of characters. There'll be 3 things at the bottom of the screen that you have to take photos of at any time. You have to get 5 photos of that person, but without yourself being in the photo. Okay. And then your character controls kind of Pac-Man style, where like you go up, left, right, or down. Like you're in open rooms, like it's not like in a maze or anything like that. But once you press left, you're going to continue moving left until you press another direction, to the point where like even if you hit a wall, you'll just bounce off the wall and then start going right. So like you really have to be. That's where it kind of gets tricky as far as like making sure you're not in the photo. And you can actually play this with mouse and keyboard, or it had game pad support. So I played it with like dual stick controls, and it worked quite nice, especially because I was able to kind of leave the cursor in like a certain spot on the screen and like, okay, just make sure I'm not in the top corner. Right. But this game, like speaking of the Rusty Wind Blows, has a great style and a super minimalist style. And this game has like, you know, minimal, like low res pixel art style, but oh my God, this game is just oozing style. Like the soundtrack alone, there's like 3 or 4 different songs, and your goal is to just get through 3 rooms of like, you just have this meter like ticking down, and every time you snap a photo properly, that your meter is like your health, but it's like a timer. And every time you get a photo of the person or the item or whatever that you're looking for, it starts refilling. But if you take a photo, you know, of the wrong person or with yourself, it drains a little quicker. So you just gotta kind of manage that. And I think at the end, if you're able to get through all 3 rooms, you get like a tallied up final score of like, and I think you do lose points for how many like missed photos you took. You know, there's all kinds of like multipliers and stuff like that. So I didn't fully figure out how the scoring system works. But this game, like, I can't get over how stylish it is. It's got this just really like purple, yellow, neon style. Like it's just so cool. It looks really cool. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just so inventive, and it even has like that kind of like RPG like side of the screen, like where you see like everything you're doing, or every time you take it's like, oh, you took a photo of this. It's like kind of like ticking down, like almost like in Hack and stuff like that. It's just like, it's got so much charm. Like I think there's a handful of other games from this developer. So I was just like, so I always get so excited when I find like a new indie developer that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to just definitely dive in deeper into their catalog. So all 3 of these developers, Kultisti, and then I definitely want to check out more stuff from Frogrammer and HumanIsRed as well. Yeah. And probably should check out more of the stuff that Lewmoth is working on, because I know he got a track in that new Everhood game that just came out recently, which we all need to check out as well. So game looks so cool. Yeah. So Yeah, I just wanted to kind of shout out some of that indie stuff per usual, I guess. But John, I know you've kind of put, like I mentioned, an indie game on my radar.
Yeah, so this one also was recommended to me, but was kind of recommended in a way that I really wasn't expecting. So Lauren, my wife, is currently taking an online course from an art professor who got laid off or lost a position at a college. So they decided to put on like a course completely online, open to anyone.
Wow.
And like Lauren was really interested in this professor, and she was like, yeah, I definitely want to, like help them out during this period. And like, it's been this nice collaborative environment where, it's a lot of like, because it's remote and it's not affiliated with any like college or anything, like it's just a like professor teaching a course that they want to, like, without any constraints whatsoever. Like it's a
curriculum that they have to abide by or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. So it's been like a really interesting, and she's loved it so far. But one of the assignments that they got for it was they had to play the game Black Room by Cassie McQuater. And it's a web-based game, and Lauren, like, she plays a couple games, but like not, I wouldn't say that she like, really plays video games like as a pastime or anything. So, I had it was nice because it was like, she got the link to the website that to play it in, but I also like was able to pull it up on itch.io. So I was like, oh, cool. I'll add that to my library too. And I'll just play it like with that. And she started playing it, and she played through it, I think, 2 separate times before like I actually sunk my teeth into it. But it's part like an art installation and part a video game. And like, because it's web based, it is I kind of, it's like, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. Like, it's not like a Twine game necessarily, but it is kind of like built in the similar way where it is like you navigate a web page and you kind of manipulate the actual box of like the web browser in order to like, as you move it, like the actual web page itself like morphs, and you are trying to like find the hyperlink within that context to progress to the next area. And it is like very much more of an like, and it is definitely an art installation, and it is definitely
it's an experience,
an interactive experience, and like it kind of does feel more like, I don't know, like a kind of a Flash game almost from like the like early 2000s in that respect. Like you can definitely, if you have any familiarity with like HTML, you can kind of see like the guts of how it's working in that way, but it is like, as you're doing like the typical, like, navigating a web page, like the whole purpose of the game is that it's supposed to like kind of I believe the like what would you call it, thesis of it is that like it's supposed to imitate the experience of having insomnia, and like that like period between wakefulness and sleep.
Oh my gosh.
And so like even like as you're playing it, like you'll like, as you're going through rooms, I would be like recognized as like, oh, that's the owl sprite from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Or like,
I thought some of the stuff looked familiar.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to place many of them, but I was like, this looks familiar.
Yeah. It's like, but it's never in the context of like everything feels very surreal and like out of place. It's like very like
dystopian collage almost.
Yes.
Like, it kind of reminded me of the film Fantastic Planet, if anybody's seen that. It's like an old like French animated film, but just really like bizarre and
very
like,
dreamlike that way too, where just things that end up in your brain just kind of get collaged together for this experience that makes no sense necessarily. But it's like, oh, that's familiar.
And like as I was playing it, like, Lauren, because she doesn't really come from like a games background, like she played it twice, like to kind of get like different experiences both times. And then like as I started playing it, like maybe like 15 minutes in, she like looks over at like the laptop screen and she's like, oh, I did not see this at all. Like,
wow, there's tons of stuff you could clearly pass up for sure.
Because like that, it also doesn't really have a structure per se. Like it's not like there's an end goal that you're always heading towards. Like sometimes there will be, because she got to places that I never got to, where
Nice.
you know, it would be like half opaque links to, or like embedded videos of YouTube clips that would play over each other and weren't necessarily structured in any way. So like you could play them over each other and have them play simultaneously. And like, but then there are also areas that are just like, oh, this is kind of more like an older PC game where your only options are to move like north, south, west, or east.
Right.
Well, even like the start of the game, though, is like a side scroller, like, where you actually just like are running. You literally just run to the right for a handful of screens. Well, and then it's just like, oh no, this is not the game I thought it was. Like, there's some kind of like thing that where it switches gears, and it is really kind of clever, and it does seem like a very personal game as well. Like as you get through the game, like, you're able to kind of like the room gets filled up with more and more abstract. Like you're kind of looking for, like, there is sort of a general sense of progression where there's always kind of like this pink hidden dot on every level that you can kind of like by resizing the window. Like that's what you're essentially like if you just looked for that on every screen. But there's so many other things you can click on, like almost like point and click adventure style, you know, or like Professor Layton style. You're like scrolling around like, what does this do? What does this do? 'Cause maybe it's just like some weird like text version, or like when you click on a window, it's like open window, and it's like literally just a bunch of like I don't know what it's called, but just like
a Google image
like,
search sometimes.
Some of them are that, like, and the videos like you said, but like what are those images, like, you know, when people like it's just like the characters on a keyboard, but
ASCII art.
Yep. And there's some that are like that, and it's like it just says, oh, a beautiful starry sky, and then there's like it kind of looks like that with ASCII art, and it's just like it's all over the place. But yeah, it's just it was a very like I did, even though I know I'm not the biggest fan of like reading and enjoying, you know, writing and stuff in games, I did it like all of the little like bits, even though it was very abstracted, I thought it like really the personalness of it like really like hit home. It was like, man, this really, and maybe I grew up in Michigan, and one of the things is like I grew up in a, you know, small town in Michigan or something, like, and it really kind of paints this story out as you like click on these like characters. And I actually did get to like an end of the game where like there's just sort of like an end screen where there's all these like kind of like vampires or whatever, vampire angel hybrids like floating around with some really cool like ominous music going on. But I don't know that I fully grasped like what the meaning was, but which is why I was like, man, this is like, it's clearly means something, but it's clearly very personal as well.
Yeah. And like the main takeaway that I was like trying to get out of it, or like I think I did get out of it, was when I was thinking of the Good Time Garden, which we talked about on a previous episode. Yeah. Like it was very clearly a game, but like I felt like it resonated more to me as like an art project, whereas this I feel was at its core an art project, but like in the framework of like a game, and that's how you experienced it. And like the headspace I was in was just so starkly different for both of them, and like I don't know like what necessarily caused that, if like just the fact that like, oh, I have the context of, you know, Black Room being an art installation and like thinking of it in that framework, if that like necessarily like cued me up to be like, oh, I'm not necessarily thinking of like, oh, what's my objective in this? Like, how am I going to progress and like beat this game? Whereas like I was thinking of that when I was thinking of like the Good Time Garden, and I wasn't like, you know, just sitting back and like experiencing that game and like enjoying it. And like, I don't know. I think I like that video games as a medium can have, you know, things that explore it to, I don't know, go outside of what the traditional like execution of it is, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even the presentation in general, because you would even have multiple windows open. I would have multiple tabs open at once and like be doing multiple things. And I'm like, am I even supposed to be doing this? I don't know. But it was really cool. Yeah, it was a really cool experience. Yeah, it was definitely a good ride. I'm glad that Lauren's teacher brought it to her attention and that she brought it to our attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But as always, we save the basketball talk for the end of the podcast.
As we do.
But for once, I guess we are talking NBA 2K, but we're talking about NBA 2K Playgrounds, NBA 2K Playgrounds 2, which we all just picked up super cheap on sale on the Switch. Yep. I haven't put a ton of time into it, although I did have the first one, which didn't have the 2K in the name. It was just NBA 2. I almost said it, but it was just NBA Playgrounds. But that was like a good, like, just kind of mindless thing for me to either put a podcast on or just like play a few games before bed. But I haven't put too much time into this second one, but I know you two have been sinking some time in. But what are your thoughts so far on this kind of NBA Jam, NBA Street hybrid?
Yeah, it is very much that. And actually, I wasn't really convinced to pick it up. I kind of I saw it in passing, but there's been a handful of these type of arcadey basketball games, and it should be right up my alley because I love NBA Jam. I own multiple versions of NBA Jam on my retro systems, including TE and things like that, and love.
Yeah, but even some of those NBA Jam updates have been busts, like the remakes of the series. So it's like even the true ones, you're kind of like, I don't know about these new basketball games.
That's a good point. Yeah, because they did try to revive it there. I mean, at this point, boy, that was like a decade ago.
It was a long time ago. It was like PlayStation 2 era or something, yeah.
But I'm like, not really. So like when I see these, like there's a heavy amount of skepticism, like yeah, it's supposed to be like arcadey and silly, but is like the core gameplay in there still like fun and engaging? And then you guys pick this up on sale. I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick it up on sale too. And I enjoy it. Yeah, it's just like 2-on-2, just like NBA Jam. Really silly. You can it is more NBA Street style in that way where you can push players and get a little aggressive that way.
There's no such thing as a foul in this game.
No.
Yeah.
No. And similar to NBA Jam, there's a lot of you can unlock old school players and things like that. Although this goes way deeper into that, which I appreciate because there's a lot of cool players in NBA history that get brought back, which is definitely also a 2K thing that the general regular 2K NBA 2K games get into as well. So happy to see that because then I could unlock my core team of Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace with the Pistons, of course, to run havoc. I did play through the regular season mode on rookie, and then I'm going through now on regular.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Is it a full NBA season, like 80 games?
16?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I was like, geez, that is nuts.
16
it's
then the
not
playoffs.
Yeah.
Which are best of 3.
Yes.
Okay.
And generally you're playing against what they classify as kind of like all-time squads of these franchises, but it doesn't quite hold true. Some of the players that end up on certain teams doesn't quite make a lot of sense to the where you would put them in your head. Like if they were retiring and going to the Hall of Fame, you wouldn't necessarily put like Jerry Stackhouse on the 76ers, but that's where they've got him here, at least one version of him in this game. So, but it's good. Like, what do you guys think?
Oh, I've really been enjoying it. I've actually never played a basketball video game, I don't think.
Yeah.
Really?
I've not played any of the NBA jams, none of them. And so
wow,
this was
interesting.
This is my first experience of I get to play I think maybe I played backyard baseball or basketball back then, but
Pablo Sanchez.
Oh yeah. But I this was my first time being a fan of the NBA and I get to play as my favorite players. And
Heck
right off the bat, you know, it gives you the card packs to unlock players that you have. And right off the bat, I'm like getting like Marcus Camby, and I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. We're getting the heavy hitters that I can play.
Some 2000s mid-card NBA players.
Yeah.
And like, it's just fun to see who gets picked for like to represent what teams. Because I did end up getting, you know, one of my favorite Bulls players, Joakim Noah, but like on the New York Knicks, which
weird.
Is a odd representation, but you know what? I'll take it. But yeah, I'm slowly but surely going through like the NBA season mode, because that's how you can unlock a player per each team.
Yep.
And you know, I'm still doing the exhibition matches because one of the things that again just appeals directly to me is this little like RPG element where you can level up players, and like in addition to that, there are challenges for each player, like that can level up specific stats. Like if you do 4 crossovers, then that levels up their stamina stat. Or if you shoot 6 2-point or 6 jumpers from inside the paint, you can level up their 2-point stat.
And you want to level those up too, because they start out pretty poor, I would say. Like, it's not like some of these guys start out like you're like, oh yeah, I got Dwight Howard and he's like 64 on dunks. You're like, what is that?
It's like that's what
Dwight
you
Howard is 25 on 3-pointers. That is atrocious.
But yeah, I've
to be fair, not what he's known for, but yes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but no, I've that's in particular. I've had some 3-point shooters that I've had where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be able to, like Kevin Durant, and I think he's like in the 60s for 3-point shooting. I'm like, come on, man, he's
Just at the start, you got to level that up.
Yeah, but I kind of like that. It does make you, although knowing that there's so many players, it's like, oh my god, you're gonna have to kind of commit to the ones you want to level up. Although maybe you're gonna be grinding through them all, John.
I'm not. I'm only good. I've already like started because like right at the beginning, I was like, all right, like I'm just gonna use like the players that I actually recognize, and then as soon as I and as you play, like the game does give you like a pretty generous amount of in-game currency if you get like the. If you go through an NBA season, I think I got at least like 2 gold packs worth, if not like 4, which are, guarantee like good players or like epic players or legendary status. But I'm like, you know what? I want to get more bronze packs because I really want to see what like the more obscure players.
Yep. Where's the obscure dudes?
Oh, I
want Arvydas Sabonis.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, you get Arvydas, and then you can play as his son, Domantas Sabonis.
I got him already. Like father, like son. I need that duo.
But it's so fun. Like it's just a goofy, like low pressure. Like I don't know. I played a lot of like NHL hits or games that were
NFL Blitz,
Blitz, Wayne Gretzky, 3D hockey type stuff. Yeah,
it is right in those vein of games.
It's very much that 64 era of like plug-in 4. It's 4 players, 4 controller. Like it's very much that era.
That's a good comparison. It is very much like a 64 style arcade sports game, and it's just as like mindless but in a good way. And it's just fun to just turn it on for a second. Play a match for a few
mindless,
minutes.
but still engaging enough. Like you do still have to like time your shots and like got that shot meter and
time
like
your
dunks. Even your dunks are not guaranteed.
Man,
like they're actually pretty freaking hard to make. I mean, maybe it's because you have that 64 ranking or whatever. But like, even the best, tallest centers are like it's hard to dunk. But alley-ooping feels so good.
Oh yeah.
I will say one of my favorite things is like botching a dunk, but like. One of my go-to players is Nikola Jokic because I just love playing as a goofy looking big guy,
big dude,
and I love how true to the game it is, or his real life game, because every time I botch a dunk, he just ends up doing a complete flat-footed like 2-point shot. And I was like, that's exactly what he does.
Those are awesome. Those flat-footed 2-pointers that like take forever to launch. Those are good.
Yeah, this is one we're definitely going to have to sync up and play some online too, because I feel like it could potentially get pretty cutthroat. I feel like it could go pretty hardcore, like back and forth. Like I love these just arcade head-to-head style games. So
Yeah, it's arcadey, but like the gameplay underneath, like you could be good at playing this game.
Yeah.
Like that's the distinction there.
And I do wonder if it has those options to like shut off the power-ups that give you like double points for dunks or triple points for 3-pointers or whatever. Or, not triple points for 3-pointers, but whatever they are. Like
that 100%
I'd be curious, even though
like guaranteed shot that you can just launch from the other end of
from
the court.
anywhere. Yeah. Because I would just be curious because I could just see it getting really cutthroat like that, you know, like, like I want to see who's just really better at this game. But at the same time, I love playing that. I love the ability of like, hey, you're never out of the game. Like you can always, maybe you're going to get a double point dunk and come right back. So like, I do love that too. So
shove the ball out of their hands. Do that enough times in the last minute, you can come back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, especially if you got Tony Parker on your team. I got 11 steals in one game with Tony Parker just going berserk. It was nuts. It was awesome, actually.
Ben Wallace is quite the blocker, as he is in real life, so that comes in handy, too. I'll say that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Heck yeah. Man, yeah, we're definitely going to have to play more of this, and we'll probably talk some more, especially if we are able to sync up, but I think we can probably wrap up the video games talk there this week, guys. And as always, you can find us on the internet nice and easily at linktree/pursuingpixels. But otherwise, we're on at pursuingpixels.com. We're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We got a nice Discord growing community for folks to hang out in. And it's a little more nicely organized now, a little easier to navigate. So hopefully it's not overwhelming, but feel free to give us feedback on that end too. But otherwise, we will catch you next week. And until then, take care.
Bye-bye.
See ya. The internet can be horny for anything.
Oh, everything, I would say. Not just anything, but literally everything.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like kind of out of control, legitimately out of control.
Oh, yeah. Again, I don't know if you guys saw the discourse, but people are angry that they desexualized Lola Bunny in Space Jam 2.
I saw that Lola Bunny was trending when I was posting something earlier, but I didn't know what it was about.
Yes, she is not as buxom as she was in the 96 iteration.
I just Google search Space Jam 2, and the second image is that exactly. So people are,
Oh, brother.
You know what?
Where's your boobs?
If you're going to see Space Jam for fucking Lola Bunny's boobs, then get a fucking life,
Kevin,
dude.
I have to tell you, I think a lot of people went for that explicit reason.
Yep. People make their own life choices.
That's right.
And who are we to judge?
That's right.
I guess, man. I don't know.
I will watch this Space Jam movie.
I'm curious.
Man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was thinking like, I forget who I was talking to about.
I like LeBron. I just kind of want to see it.
I mean,
LeBron's
I think he's actually a really good actor. I've loved him in Trainwreck. I thought he was really funny.
No, I never saw that.
I forgot he was in that movie.
He was incredible in it. Like
I could see it. He's got charisma. Like
I would say like there's an incredible scene with him and Will Forte where they're just like eating at a restaurant, and then at the end it's like LeBron's like splitting the check for them. And like it is so good.
Yeah, imagine like LeBron James like, oh yeah, we're gonna go 50-50.
He's like okay, so you ordered the appetizer, I didn't have any of that.
I didn't have anything to drink.
I literally made $3 million during this dinner, but we're gonna split this bill up.
We're going Dutch, right?
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's great.